Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of More to Explore, where we keep you up to date with everything happening here on explore.org. And we've got a great show for you today, welcoming back the Puffins. Here we see Willie and Millie here in Burrow 59. So welcoming back the Puffins and all the seabirds of Seal Island. And then we have a big update with Egg Watch, keeping an eye on all the nest activity. And we'll be joined by our new bird naturalist, Holly, making her explore.org debut. So please give her a big welcome. And at the end of today's show, we'll get a sneak peek of some of the new website design updates from Candace Rush, Explore.org's Director of New Media. So let's get to it. My name is Brian Bird, and I'm joined once again by Explore.org's resident naturalist, Mike Fitz. Mike, good afternoon.
Hi, Brian. Great to be here once again, and I'm happy to be along for the ride. And if you're new to Explore.org, welcome to the community. And of course, welcome back to all of our longtime viewers. We are the world's largest live nature cam network with about 200 live cameras all over the world. And we want to know what cams you're watching, you have been watching, what are you looking forward to watching? If you have questions for us as well, drop those in the chats. We'll be looking for them during the program today. But yeah, we're excited for the return of Atlantic puffins and our puffin cams on Seal Island National Wildlife Refuge in Maine. These scenes that we're able to enjoy and learn from on Seal Island are not something that we should take for granted, because just 60 years ago, we would not have found any breeding puffins on the island. In the Gulf of Maine, Atlantic puffins were eliminated from all but one breeding colony by the late 1800s. Egg collecting and excessive hunting had reduced their populations so dramatically that the slow to reproduce puffins had yet to recover their populations by the 1970s. Thankfully, the work of dedicated individuals at the National Audubon Society's Seabird Institute and its forerunner, Project Puffin, has set puffins and other seabirds who nest on Seal Island on a different course, one in which those species have an opportunity to become an abundant part of coastal communities and fulfill their ecological roles in the Gulf of Maine. Caring for places like Seal Island means studying the wildlife that use it as their home, understanding how human activities influence it, and sharing that knowledge with the world. To help share those stories of the birds on Seal Island, especially, we're welcoming Sophia Larson to the Explore.org community. Sophia is this summer's communications and outreach assistant with the National Audubon Society's Seabird Institute. I talked with her last week, and here is our conversation. Sophie, great to speak with you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. And yeah, as you said, I am the communications and outreach assistant this year at the Seabird Institute. And that also means that I will be moderating the Explore Cams and hosting some exciting events there. So yeah, just excited to join you and share seabird knowledge. Love the birds. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we're looking forward to your programs that you're hosting this summer. I know that you're also going to be talking with people in the comments on explore.org. I know that you had some experience with, the Audubon Society or seabirds in the past. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm wondering, what attracted you to this job specifically?
Yeah, so my first experience, not necessarily seabirds, more with shorebirds, was at Mass Audubon with the Coastal Waterbird program down there, which is a great program, mostly dedicated to protecting not puffins, plovers, different pea bird, and also least terns and a few oyster catchers. And I just really fell in love with kind of the coastal habitat and the birds that migrate to that area and nest along the coast. And I also have a background in communications. I've worked kind of mostly at the intersection between kind of, the communications and the sciences, and that's what my degree was in as well. So kind of getting to work with both the puffins and seabirds and also get to, talk with people and create events and build community around these birds was really what attracted me to this role.
And we know that there's so many things that we could potentially focus on the webcams, whether we're looking at the puffin burrow out on Seal Island or the Guillemot Burrow or the Osprey nest, you know, at the sanctuary at Hog Island. I'm curious about the storylines maybe that you're interested in following, whether that's Osprey or Puffins or both or others. What are the storylines that you're most interested in following on the cams this summer?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the Osprey cams are a really interesting story just because specifically at Hog Island and the Boathouse cam at Todd has kind of experienced some predation the past few seasons. So it'll be interesting to see how the Osprey are adapting to that and whether they are nesting at the same place or if they are moving, and kind of seeing this predator prey dynamic kind of play out, and how the osprey as predators themselves are also being predated and kind of this cycle of life, and how that spurs, you know, adaptation and moving and things like that. I find that to be very interesting. It is difficult to watch at times, but it seems like this season they might be shifting. So curious to see where they might be going. I've been out on Hog Island and around Todd kind of looking for them and trying to search for where they might be moving. I think I might have found their nest, which is pretty cool. So yeah, just kind of seeing their kind of life story and drama play out is always super fun. Also more on the puffin side of things, and out on seal, I am interested to see what kind of forage fish and things are being brought to the nest this season. We know that because of climate change and the Gulf of Maine is one of the fastest warming bodies of water in the world, that the availability of forage fish has changed quite a bit, and this affects what puffins will be bringing to the nest to feed their chicks. So trying to get more of a sense of how that might be affecting the chicks, whether the fish, we're seeing more butterfish, which are thicker, so whether they are able to even eat the fish that their parents are bringing, whether there are more squid, things like that, will be really interesting to see, and also a great kind of we like to say sentinel of climate change, or kind of a sign of the health of our oceans, which is another reason why seabird research is so important, because they have this connectivity between the ocean and the land, and are also just so fun to watch, such charismatic characters. So that is what I'm most looking forward to this season.
Well, yeah, that's a lot to to watch for. I mean, it's those are enthralling stories, and I know there are many viewers who have been uh, attracted to those stories for many years, and I know they'll especially appreciate your ability to be on the ground at the Todd Sanctuary, looking for the osprey, looking at different things that maybe we can't see on the cameras, and then also, yeah, I'm really looking forward to learning more from you and the people that you talk to about what's going on with the puffins due to climate change in the Gulf of Maine. I know you've been working hard already to kind of line up some live programs for us this summer, and we'll get those on our public schedule soon. But what do you have in store for our webcam viewers during the summer season, as far as like live chats and Q&As and anything else that you might have planned?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, there has been a specific focus lately on what kind of fish puffins are bringing, and we will be doing a webinar on that with Julie Wallace, who just published a paper using ExploreCam footage, or and from within a puffin burrow, to kind of get this feeding data, which is a really cool way that the cameras can support science. And so that's one thing that we will be doing. We'll also be doing a webinar on osprey specifically and their feeding habits. We will be doing one on habitat flyways and the roseate tern tagging, which is super cool. Terns go all over the place. They are world travelers. There was just a presentation that I got to watch yesterday on Arctic tern tagging, and one of them went, it was so cool to watch, was tagged in Maine and went all the way down the coast of Africa to Tanzania to the Arctic and then back up to Maine.
Oh, wow.
So getting to kind of see the life stories of these birds beyond when they are nesting with us in Maine will be really cool, and I'm excited for that one. We also have one of our Seabird researchers who has been with us for 11 seasons. Just recently will be publishing a book called The Atlas of Kinship. So I'm hoping that and this is still up in the air, but hoping that we can do an event with her and kind of get her expertise, and also get to talk with her about her book, which some of the chapters do highlight the work that she's done at Project Puffin over the years. And yeah, we will be also, in terms of kind of more interactive things, we will be bringing back the chick naming challenge. We will also be doing a challenge for Guillemot Appreciation Week, which I'll keep a little bit close to the vest until that week's, and there's so it's more of a surprise. But yeah, we will be doing some fun stuff also throughout the summer. And there will also be, I have posted Q&A forms on both the Osprey and the Puffin project pages. So if you ever want to ask a question directly to me, the easiest way to do it is through there, and I will give you a personalized email response when I get the information.
Well, that's great. Yeah, and I was wondering about that. I know you're looking forward to answering people's questions on the Puffin cams and elsewhere with the Seabird Institute. So that form, that's maybe the best place for people to submit their questions.
Yes, that is the most direct way. I do, I monitor the comments and I do look through. So if you've said something or had a question within the comment section, I will also likely see that. But it does, especially at the height of the season, things can get buried. So if you want to ask a specific question and get a more in-depth response, that's the best way to do it. And I will be able to, call on some of our experts here at the Seabird Institute, ask your question to them and get a more personalized response to that.
Awesome. Yeah, and we're certainly looking forward to all those programs that you have lined up. They sound like very interesting topics. One of the things that people in your position in the past have been able to do as well is go out and visit Seal Island for a period of time. So will you have that chance to go out there with the researchers, or maybe a different research island with the Seabird Institute? And if so, what are you looking forward to learning when you get there?
Yeah, I'm really excited. The end of this month, I will be able to spend about a week on Seal Island, living like a researcher. And I'm really excited to just kind of get more of a sense of what life as a seabird is like. And, it's so great that we get to have a window into their lives through the Explore cams, but kind of getting out there, smelling the salt, having the ocean around me, feeling the cold, I think will gives you more of an appreciation for what life is like and how well adapted they are to these environments, especially when maybe I am not particularly well adapted to that environment, and also just getting more of a sense of how hard our researchers work and how cool the work that we get to do out there is. And I am also just really excited to see some birds and see the puffins in person, and maybe a storm petrel or two. It's just like such a unique and wonderful environment, and just a great experience that I'm going to get to have.
Yeah, I think you're going to love it out there. The couple times I've been to Seal Island, hasn't been during like the peak of the bird nesting season. It's mostly been with the cams getting set up at different parts of the year, but it is absolutely amazing out there. We shouldn't ignore, though, sort of like or I shouldn't ignore, excuse me. We've been talking about puffins and focusing a lot on Seal Island, but the Seabird Institute has had an influence really like worldwide in restoring seabird colonies. So how has that Seabird Institute inspired and influenced, these restoration efforts in other parts of the world?
Yeah, I think we are really lucky that a lot are the methods that we've been able to develop to support the seabirds have been implemented in countries all over the world, specifically our social attraction method, which is where you use decoys to attract seabirds to a new nesting site, has been used in over 50 countries around the world to restore seabird colonies. Specifically, a couple cool examples is one of which is the Chinese crested tern, which was thought to be extinct and then was sighted off in the around their historic range, and using social attraction methods, using decoys and sounds, they were able to bring the Chinese crested tern to nest on an island that was deemed safe. And these methods have also been used to help birds that are particularly susceptible to sea level rise, or if their historic nesting sites have been overrun with invasive species like rats, able to shift their range to a more safe site, and help to conserve these birds that might otherwise succumb to things like, sea level rise and other pressures.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. It's amazing to think about what sort of like the pioneering work of researchers like Dr. Steve Kress and others, how that work in the Gulf of Maine has expanded to help birds around the world. And Sophie, I'm looking forward to learning more from you and the people that you talk to this summer on the cams. And I want to thank you for your time today. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a delight.
And thanks again to Sophia Larson, who is the Communications and Outreach Assistant with the National Audubon Society's Seabird Institute. Be sure to check the events calendar in the info tab on any of the webcam pages on explore.org for the days and times of the Seabird Institute programs this summer. I think Sophie has at least 4 lined up already. Perhaps there could be some more, but definitely 4 coming up this year. And if you want to learn about their work, go to audubon.org/seabird-institute to check out what they have on their website. And of course, if you want to watch like our puffin cams, this like footage like this anytime, go to explore.org/puffins. Right at the top of the show, Brian and I asked what people were watching, and we wanted you to let us know. And we got some responses from some viewers. No surprise, Brian. It looks like people have been watching puffins and other birds. Momo F.A. Nosy Manx wrote in and said, morning, Mike and Brian, been watching puffins, pricker owls, and the burrowing owls. Mrs. Shack 83 says puffins and bears. LB 1460 says been watching eagles, owls, Africam, and looking forward to the Katmai bears. Yeah, bears and Katmai are coming up pretty soon. In about a month's time, we should have our cameras nearly ready to go. And then M Photographer 8400 actually is a new viewer. So welcome, M Photographer, who writes, I am new and have not watched the live cam yet as I'm just discovering you. I'm looking forward to watching. I've been watching the Big Bear Eagles for years, so I'm so glad to have discovered you. Yeah, welcome to the community, M Photographer. If you like bird cams, especially eagle cams, we've got a wide variety for you. And I think we're the only cameras, at least in North America, of puffins. So really great to see. And then April Owl, longtime viewer, says, excited to see puffins and other seabirds. Been watching many cams, but especially all the nest happenings with the eagles, falcons, owls, osprey, and the antics of the bonobos and the birth of the new colt in Kentucky. Yeah, that's a lot to keep track of, April. So good for you to be able to do that, because I feel like I can barely keep track of it all. And then we did have one viewer question that came in from Kelly Butterfly on YouTube, who was wondering, are the puffins tagged or banded? Yes, many of them are on Seal Island. So that's kind of part of the research effort out on Seal Island, is that they will band many of the birds. And that helps the researchers keep track of individuals, but also longevity and things like that, and who's going back and forth to which burrows and things like that. So they'll often band, maybe not necessarily the adults these days, but they might. But I think it's mostly focused on banding the pufflings, as they're called. So the baby puffins in their burrows before they fledge. And then, hey, we see this bird come back 10 years later, 8 years later, something like that. It's got that band. Let's read the number on it. Oh, yeah, that was a bird that was hatched in 2025, 2026, or something like that. So, yes, they are working on, that's part of their research efforts out on the island.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely a lot of great cams to watch. And Mike, it's one of the things, of course, it's so amazing to be able to see these live views, but I think we can't forget about the feat that it is to make these live cams live where they are. As you see, like the landscape here is just a rocky island. And you actually got to go out there with the field operations crew this year to install the cams. So I'm curious, what was that experience like?
It was pretty great. Partly because we had really great weather when we were out there. We hit it just before like a big storm came in. But yeah, it's a process to get these cams up and running. So like for the loafing ledge cam here, where we're watching these razorbills, yeah, it's a bit of work. It takes a lot of time, a lot of preparation. I was kind of there just as a grunt to help Joe Pfeiffer and BJ Kirchhoffer, who are our lead field technicians. But to get to the island, we left from Rockland, Maine, and we got on basically a boat that's like an old lobster boat that just ships people around from island to island. So we left from Rockland. It's about an hour and a half trip out there, which I didn't mind. We had great weather. I could just sit on the back deck, look for birds, look for anything else that caught my attention. But when you get to the island itself, it's not like there's a dock or anything that you can just pull up to. You have to get a little dinghy and a little inflatable dinghy. This is BJ. He has whitewater rafting experience, so for him it was kind of easy to get, at least in this calm weather, to get our stuff to the island. But yeah, you got to ferry your stuff to the island on a little dinghy. Hope everything doesn't get wet. We had a rougher time on the way out because the waves were wrapping around the island and it was a bit rougher. So we got wet on the way back onto the boat in a couple of days. But that's how you get your stuff to the island itself. And then when you're on the island, it is a national wildlife refuge. So one of the first things that you notice is the Seal Island sign, at least on that northwest side of the island. But that's not the only sign that you see there. In fact, there's one really big one that's a big warning sign that says danger, unexploded ordnance, island closed. So that, these things happen under permit. The Seabird Institute works with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service so they can gain access to the island, and we're able to install the cameras there. But this is a reminder that, this wasn't always a protected space. This was a place that the U.S. military used basically as a bombing range. Wow. I don't know how long that happened, but you can find bits of unexploded ordnance or exploded ordnance on the island. So when you're on the island, you're really supposed to stay on the trails that people have been walking for a few decades now. So those are deemed safe areas. You can hop from rock to rock. So hey, there's not a bomb on the rock. If there's going to be a bomb, it's going to be in the sod. But overall, yeah, just like wearing your seatbelt, you want to be careful while you're out there, not take risks. The
Definitely.
Island itself, though, yeah, Brian,
I imagine that'd be a little concerning.
It can be. You're kind of like, okay, I'm just going to watch my step here. Like, oh, I could just cut across this grass. And then you're like, nah, I think I'll just take the long way one more time. But yeah, Brian, you should get the chance to go out there one day. You should travel out because it's super neat. It's such a cool place. A lot of the areas that we watch, especially like on the gray seal cams, those are areas of grassy sod. So parts of the island are covered in really a really rich sod, just fertilized by bird guano throughout the entire summer. But then many parts of the island are covered in rocky cliffs, especially on the side the eastern side that's exposed to the Atlantic, where the big waves and big storms kind of push in. So this is kind of south of the research station a little bit, looking across the island towards the south end of the island, looking across those cliffs, and you get a bit of what this looks like on the Puffin Loafing Ledge cam a little bit, and certainly our Gray Seal cams, they're perched a little bit higher in the air, and you can see some of those. But most of the time, on the Puffin cams, you don't necessarily see the dramatic bold cliffs on that side of the island. But let's take a look at an image of the whole island, so we can show everybody kind of where the cameras are, because being out there really helped me understand better of where the camera locations are at. So this is the whole island from northeast to southwest. That shoreline's about 1.5 miles long, and then I think it's about 3.25 miles in circumference, broadly speaking. If you were to measure every one of those nooks and crannies, it might get actually closer to 3.5 or 4 miles even, depending on how precise your measurements are. The cameras for our Puffin cams, though, are located on the north end of the island. The Steve Kress Research Station is where the Puffin and Seabird Institute researchers are based out of. So that shack kind of gives them shelter from the wind. It gives them a dry place to do their work. They have tent pads where they will sleep, or many of them will sleep. And then there's separate solar panels to give them a little bit of electricity inside the research station, and also to power like the Gray Seal cams in that vicinity as well. The north end of the island, though, is where our Puffin cams are located. So there's a solar array there, and these solar panels on the north end of the island are going to power basically all of the Seabird cams that we have there. The Guillemot Burrow cam, it's offline right now. There's been some technical difficulties. We're going to try to get this cam online in the next couple of weeks, but it's offline right now. But that one's located very close to the solar panels, and we get a look at a Guillemot Burrow where we get to see 1 or 2 chicks being raised in this crevice in the granite there. Nearby, though, just a little bit to the northeast, is the Puffin boulder berm cam. And this looks at the boulders on the north end of the island, where there are many different Puffin burrows. The numbers on the rocks, if you're new to this cam, those mark Puffin burrows. And when we were there, we knew that Puffins were in the burrows. We could hear them vocalizing. It kind of sounds like and you can hear this, I think, on several of the different cams, especially the Puffin burrow cam, which we'll get to a little bit. But it sounds like an engine starting up. I'm gonna see if I can imitate it, and people can make fun of me if I get this wrong. But it's basically like, so you'll hear them in there, and they can make other noises as well, but it sounds a bit like an engine starting up. And then our burrow cams themselves, we have 2 in that vicinity. We have the exterior camera, which looks at burrow 59, which is where our burrow camera is actually located. So burrow 59 is where Willie and Millie make their residence, and right now they are incubating a single egg in there. So hopefully we'll have the opportunity to watch their puffin grow throughout the summer. Then our final Puffin camera that we have on Seal Island is the Loafing Ledge. So that's kind of on the northeast corner of the island. This is one of the best views, I think, on explore.org, looking at razorbills, terns, puffins, maybe something else surprising happens to show up every once in a while. There was a tufted puffin, which is a Pacific species that was on Seal Island for a couple of years. I don't know what it was doing there, but it was hanging out and seemingly doing well, except it didn't have any other tufted puffins to hang out with, just Atlantic puffins. So yeah, that's a bit of an overview of the different camera locations on Seal Island, and I wanted to give everybody that overview so you have a better idea of where those cameras are located. I want to thank Joe and BJ for their hard work getting the cameras set up on the island. I was kind of just their grunt. So I could sit there all day and just watch birds, but I know Joe and BJ needed me to do some work, so I was carrying things back and forth for them and helping to do some of the more menial work that allowed them to concentrate on the more skilled work on the island. But there's one part of the experience, and you heard Sophie mention it in our interview, that we don't necessarily experience on the cameras, because these birds are more active at night and they nest in the sod. We don't have a camera there with them, but that happens to be the Leach's storm petrels. So these are really neat birds. They're widespread across the oceans of the northern hemisphere, but in the North Atlantic, they breed from Massachusetts all the way to Norway. So they're kind of like a North Atlantic breeder on this side of the continent, and their flight is bat-like. I did see one of them flying at a distance when I was just walking someplace on the island, but it's a very bat-like flight. So picture a bat flying, very fluttery, rapid wing beats, sudden turns. These birds feed on plankton at the ocean's surface. And like all seabirds, though, they need to return to land to reproduce. They are abundant on Seal Island, and you don't notice that during the day. You can kind of see their burrows every once in a while. So if you're walking along, you'll see some burrows in the sod like this. This is my notebook. It's about 8 inches, 15 centimeters wide, or something like that. But yeah, you can see their burrows here and there on the island. But at night, it's really the sounds that keep you up. And literally, like they woke us up probably like 10, 15 times at night. And I think you get used to it, Brian, like living next to like a railroad or something. But they're really noticeable. And it's kind of cool. I was actually looking forward to it. So I didn't mind them waking me up every once in a while. When we have a couple of clips from some recordings of the sounds that they made. And these are recordings that I made like at 1 a.m. Sitting in my tent and listening. So and that's what you hear all night, just flying around on the ground near you. It's really neat. So that's a bit about the experience and a bit about the cams on Seal Island. It was a wonderful experience, and I thank everybody for their hard work getting the cams online. So be sure to enjoy those cameras for us.
Yeah, super excited that you got to go out there, and thank you for that overview. It's definitely helpful for me that I have yet to go there. I hope to get to go there one day, but definitely an overview is helpful for everybody. And speaking of the puffins and the seabirds, we have so much more to get to on this week's Egg Watch.
That's right. This is our May 18, 2026 edition of Egg Watch, where we check on the bird nesting activity of our myriad cams on explore.org. And this update includes the return of Atlantic puffins, a glimpse into the lives of European rollers, the awe and wonder we can feel when glimpsing a newly hatched bird, and a warm welcome to the explore.org community with our bird naturalist, Holly Garrett. Holly, thanks for being here. So glad to have you along for the ride. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to join the explore.org team. These bird cams are just so cool.
Well, let's get to it because we have a lot of cameras to get through, and we want to update everybody on what's going on in the Puffin burrow with Willie and Millie.
Yeah, and so with Willie and Millie, so it looks like Willie has been using the burrow since 2016 and Millie since 2019, and there is an egg in the burrow from when the camera went live on May 11th, so that's pretty exciting. And we can expect for them incubation is going to last around 41 days on average, so a little bit over a month. So assuming that the egg was laid in the first week of May, we probably should be looking for a hatch around mid-June. So keep an eye on that one just to watch them incubating, and we'll be seeing a hatch in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. And there's a new camera that we haven't really promoted much yet on explore.org, Holly, but this is, I understand, one of your favorite birds, and this camera is in Italy, the European roller.
Yeah, European rollers are definitely one of my favorite birds. I studied the toadies of the Caribbean for my master's thesis. So I just love the birds of this order, kingfishers, motmots, rollers. I just think they're some of the most stunning birds and very understudied. And so with this cam, we don't have any eggs yet, but we can definitely expect eggs coming soon. I've been watching that the pair has been copulating pretty frequently, and that we're actually seeing the pairs doing some pretty cool pair bonding behaviors. So we see them both kind of landing on that branch, doing these head swoops, calling with each other. And so those kind of behaviors kind of help solidify their pair bond. And they are monogamous, so these birds should mate, should stay together. But hopefully soon we'll be seeing eggs, and we can likely expect around 4 to 6 eggs. And when I was looking up more information on them, I actually couldn't find much about their breeding behaviors. So I think it really just highlights how important cameras like this are, because it allows us to better describe some of the breeding behaviors for these species that we really haven't been able to watch them nesting before.
And thanks to our new partner, Ornis Italica, which is a nonprofit scientific association focused on wildlife conservation and the study of behavioral ecology of animals. And speaking of a bird where there hasn't been much described about their reproduction and nesting activity, let's head to Texas right now with our partner at Texas Backyard Wildlife, because we're watching a black-crested titmouse currently raising 3 nestlings. And this is a camera that I've been hooked on recently, Holly.
Yeah, this one is really cool. I was watching this one a bit this morning. And the black-crested titmouse is really a special species because so a lot of people from the eastern part of North America and the US and Canada will probably be familiar with the tufted titmouse, but this species was actually split apart from the tufted titmouse in the early 2000s because it was found to be pretty genetically unique and just this unique population with the black crest. So they're actually considered to be endemic, so really only found in south central US, especially in Texas, and into a little bit of northeastern Mexico. And so for them, what we see is that they laid their eggs. The first egg was laid on April 28th. And then we actually just had them hatch on May 15th, which was very exciting. We have 3 nestlings. So as you can see, they're still very, very young. And the nestling development isn't well described by Birds of the World. So hopefully we can, as we're watching this camera, we can see these birds as they start to get their feathers in. And what we will notice with songbirds is that they, while they're kind of still in this as like the naked stage, I like to call them adorable sometimes, or like ugly yet adorable. We'll still really see the parents be brooding them because they will need that warmth of the parents' brood patch, that the skin that the parents develop to especially incubate. And so we will be seeing the parents still very attentive to them until they can kind of start to get feathers and get a bit bigger. But what's really cool, and especially since comparing to some of the other cameras that Explore.org has, these birds are just going to grow and fledge so quickly. To me, it's just incredible how a lot of songbirds or birds in the passerine order, they'll just be ready to fledge usually within around 2 weeks. So definitely keep an eye on this one, because I think every day we're going to be seeing these chicks growing and changing.
That's right. Yeah. By the next episode of More to Explore and our next update of Egg Watch, these birds probably be out of the nest.
Yeah.
So blink and you'll miss it. Check it out right now with Texas Backyard Wildlife. Really neat camera to see. We are also welcoming some new Peregrine Falcon ISs to the world. So if we turn our attention to Peregrine Falcons, let's head to Baltimore, Maryland, with Bo and Barb in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, on a skyscraper. They have 4 ISs in their nest right now, Holly.
Yes, they do. And this one we were seeing was, unfortunately, the first clutch was a single abandoned egg, but the second clutch had 5 eggs, which is great news. And so these eggs were laid, first egg was laid at April 3rd, and then the 5th egg was laid April 14th. So it was kind of almost 2-week period between the egg laying. And we just had some of the hatches on May 16th. The first 2 were on May 16th, the 3rd on May 17th, and the 4th on May 18th. So just really excited to see these guys joining us and entering the world.
And on the first chick that hatched in this clutch, we got this amazing view of the mother, Barb, actually helping the chick hatch.
Yeah,
And Holly, I'd never seen anything like this before. This was amazing.
I've never seen that either, to be honest, and I found that to be quite special because usually with birds, you just kind of the parents are leaving them on their own. They laid the eggs and the chicks got to get out. So this was just quite special to watch the mother actually help the chick out.
Let's let this roll for just a little bit, Brian, because yeah, we could see the mother how much it looks a little rough. I'm sure from her perspective, she knows what she's doing though. But yeah, I had no idea that a peregrine might pick up their chick like a cat would pick up a kitten and just reposition.
Yeah, that is quite incredible. But it's just crazy that even though it looks rough to us, I'm sure that she is being very gentle with the chick, and you can just see, yeah, the care she's putting into that nest.
And then the repositioning that she does there, where she's like, hey, you're going to be in the middle of these eggs because I get to keep all of these eggs still warm if they're going to hatch. So great work there by Barb. Our partner there is the Chesapeake Conservancy. Other peregrine nests that we're watching right now, Great Spirit Bluff in Minnesota over the Mississippi River. Elaine and Newman have been doing really, really well, Holly.
Yeah, and these ones, I think, being a Seinfeld fan since I was a kid, these guys have two of my favorite names for sure. And so with them, what we were seeing is they have 4 eggs, with the first egg being laid on March 19th, second egg on March 22nd, third egg March 24th, and fourth egg on March 26th. So a bit of a shorter span with laying as compared to the Chesapeake Falcons. And then we saw that the hatch was on between April 28th and 29th for these 3 birds. And so with them, usually what we see is we should see expected fledge around early to mid-June. So they're going to spend a bit over a month in the nest, just growing and getting their feathers.
And then sticking with the Raptor Resource Project, Castle Rock, the bluff over the river in Wisconsin, Faber and Elsa, they are also raising a clutch.
Yeah, and what we saw with these guys is they were just a little bit later than the Great Spirit Bluff Falcons, where we saw the eggs being laid between March 29th and April 5th. And then we saw hatch May 6th and 7th for the 3 eldest eyases. And then what we're seeing for them too is since they were like probably about a week and a half to 2 weeks behind the other one, we're going to be seeing them probably fledging around mid to late June. So again, just little bit, kind of about a month and a half that these birds are spending in the nest.
And that's certainly less time than our bald eagles, who are getting fairly close to fledging. In fact, if we go out to Fraser Point, Santa Cruz Island in California with the Institute for Wildlife Studies, it may be maybe less than a month, Holly, for these birds before they are out of the nest.
Yeah, and so the expected fledge for them is mid-June, and if we backtrack a little bit, we saw their eggs being laid. First egg was laid February 19th, and then the last egg on February 22nd, or 26th, excuse me. So you can see that these birds need to spend quite a bit more time in the nest, just being much larger raptors. So we saw the first chick hatched on March 28th, named Sasha, and the second chick was hatched March 30th, named Zuma, and the third chick hatched around April 1st or 2nd, named Ryder. So we have 3 chicks in there. But yeah, you can see that a lot of these larger raptors just really, they spend a lot more time in the nest, and that just really helps them develop their feathers fully. Because if we think about raptors and how they're kind of cruising around and that they spend so much time flying and really need to kind of fly and fine-tune their aerial skills, they're just going to want to spend as much time in the nest as possible to really grow those feathers.
And it's a similar story in the mid-continent of North America, back with the Raptor Resource Project. And I should mention, thanks to our partner at the Institute for Wildlife Studies for our Fraser Point cams. But yeah, back in the mid-continent of North America at the Decorah nest, 2 chicks there and getting fairly close to fledge.
Yeah, we you can really see that these guys are starting to look like teenage eagles. And so what we see is the first egg was laid February 17th, second egg on February 21st, and then we had they were hatched at the end of March, so hatched around March 27th and for the first chick and March 29th for the second chick. So we should be seeing them fledge around mid-June. So really with these guys, we can see that they're really kind of starting to look. I feel like baby raptors always have what I like to call a Muppet stage, where they really just look like these goofy little puppets. But now they actually do look like young birds. And what's interesting too is if you're watching, and I was watching this one a bit last week, you kind of notice that they're not really walking on their feet. They actually are walking on their ankle, and kind of what the tarsus is what it's called. And that's kind of something we see in a lot of birds that spend this quantity of time in the nest, is they'll actually kind of have this calloused tarsus, and that they'll kind of walk around on their ankles. So they won't be walking fully on their feet yet. And again, that's just kind of part of the development stage, but something kind of cool to observe. Even watching them sleep was pretty funny, because I was noticing that they kind of sleep almost like a dog. They're just splayed out, which isn't really how we think birds sleep. But when they're in the nest, they're just still in this kind of floppy stage.
Yeah, they get to relax a little bit more compared to what they would experience if they're out of the nest and away from the protection of their parents. Yeah, and before we move on from the Raptor Resource Project, we do want to mention also the Philippine Eagles. In the Philippines, this is one of the most critically endangered raptors in the world, and Bayani is about 5 months old and continues to grow.
Yeah, and this was honestly one of the cameras I was most excited for joining Explore.org, just because Philippine eagles are critically endangered, like you mentioned, and just such a rare bird and one of the largest birds in the world. So just an incredible bird of prey. So being able to actually get a glimpse into what is going on in the world of this bird, I just think is absolutely incredible. And so with this guy, since the Philippines is kind of on the other side of the world, I would say this one would be a great one to check out in the evenings. You can see the 5-month-old bird, Bayani, is hanging out. And that name is the Filipino word for hero, because really it's just amazing the work that they're doing to get these birds back into the wild. But yeah, I would say check this bird out more in the, if you're watching dinner or eating dinner, looking for something to watch, this would be a great camera to check out in the evening when it's more morning time in the Philippines, and this bird will be a bit more active.
And speaking of large birds, large raptors, we have our Gurkha owl cam that has been entertaining a lot of us because it's just an amazing view. We didn't, Holly, we never figured out how many eggs were laid in their clutch because we couldn't see into the nest snag itself or that tree, but we were able to confirm recently that there's 3 owlets in the nest.
Oh, and that's, to me, seeing a gray owl is another just one of these incredible birds that we're able to actually see the nest for. In the birding world, oftentimes these birds are called the great gray ghost, because they can just be so hard to find and so mysterious. And Montana is one of the places to see them. I actually was able to see a great gray owl nest up in Missoula a few years ago. So just, but really cool to actually get kind of like an eye level view of these birds. And so we did notice, yeah, the female was incubating starting around March 30th, and incubation for them lasts around 28 to 36 days, so a little bit over a month. And we did see that on April 30th, there was at least 1 owlet. And so for them, as you mentioned, we do have confirmed 3 owlets in the nest, and we can expect them to fledge in 3 to 4 weeks, so around 26 to 28 days. And that should be around Memorial Day weekend, so May 21st to 26th. And what's pretty incredible about them too is the chicks gain around 20 grams a day, so these birds are growing fast. And because, as we noticed, that this nest is actually kind of in a snag, a lot of owls will actually be more cavity nesters, so the nest will be more inside of a tree, except for some of the larger ones like great gray or great horned owls. But what we actually see is, because they're nesting kind of in the top of this snag, the juvenile plumage is really meant to mimic kind of this bark, lichen, tree trunk. So they really have this amazing camouflage going on.
And thanks to the Owl Research Institute for partnering with us there. They also partner with us for our great horned owl nest in Charlo, Montana, with Hootie and Wonky. And I think Holly, we probably might be saying goodbye to the owlet that was in this nest because it seems like this owlet was old enough to start branching and may be out of our camera view right now.
Yeah, so this guy started branching around May 15th, and oftentimes what we see with the great horned owlets is they will leave the nest before they can fly because branching, where they kind of start hopping between branches and they'll start just kind of fluffing out their feathers and kind of start feeling what it's like to be a bird. That usually starts around 6 weeks of age, and so we're already seeing that now. But I do think this highlights a great example of just when you see these birds like this, that this bird is clearly a younger bird. When you see, oftentimes starts to be the season when we see baby birds on the ground, whether it be a baby owlet or a baby songbird. And one of my biggest pieces of advice is always to just leave these birds be, because oftentimes, even though they look a little lost and disoriented, the parents are almost always around nearby, watching them, taking care of them. And these birds are just kind of figuring out how to be a bird.
Before we leave Montana, specifically even Charlo, Montana, let's check out what's happening at the Charlo Osprey nest. This is also with our research institute. We are coming up on a hatch window, I think, fairly soon. Is that right, Holly?
Yeah, saw these eggs were laid. First egg was laid May 1st, and the third egg was laid May 7th. So we had this. The first week of May was really when we saw these eggs being laid. And so since they incubate for around a month, we should be seeing an expected hatch in early June. The Montana Osprey to me are just so special because I do a lot of work in the Caribbean and we see them overwintering there a lot. Sometimes the same birds that actually have been tagged in Montana, which again just highlights the importance of bird banding. And so usually once they come back to Montana, that just really feels like when spring is starting to arrive. So it's just really cool.
Then we have one other osprey nest that we're watching. This is in the Chesapeake Bay at Kent Island with the Chesapeake Conservancy. And we're kind of in a similar situation, Holly, where a hatch window is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, we should be seeing a hatch pretty soon. They had their first eggs laid on April 21st through April 27th was when they were laying. And so we should be seeing a hatch sometime at end of May, or early June, because incubation for them is going to last a little bit over a month. And these birds did actually fledge 3 chicks in 2025. So here's hoping they have a good 2026 season.
In that vicinity of North America, too, on the Delmarva Peninsula, that part of Maryland, we're watching great blue herons as well. And these birds are growing rapidly, and it's not going to be long before they are actually out of the nest.
Yeah, so with these birds, it looked like that they started incubation in early April, and then we saw the first chick around April 27th, but it looks like there is at least 3 in the nest. But with them, we usually see that they will be brooding by the parents for about 3 to 4 weeks, but the chicks can spend up to 7 to 8 weeks in the nest. So probably looking at a fledge around mid-June. But the heron nests are just so cool because you see them nesting in these rookeries where there'll just be so many herons in these trees. And you just never think of herons being in trees since there's water birds and you always think of them with their long legs wading through ponds. But it's really quite incredible to just see all these herons nesting in trees together, and that's really thought to be since with a lot of birds when they nest colonially in these big groups, that just helps defend from predators. You just have so many eyes watching the area, looking after everybody's chicks, so it kind of is this nice group effort.
And thanks to our partner at the Chesapeake Conservancy for that camera. Speaking of group nesting birds, it isn't restricted. That behavior isn't restricted to like a single species or one species in one area. Holly, our spoonbill cam with the Alligator Farm Zoological Park in St. Augustine, Florida. I mean, we've been seeing so many different wading birds there at all stages, from eggs to newly hatched birds to birds that are nearly ready to fledge.
Yeah, this one is so cool. And I mean, in particular, you can look out for roseate spoonbills, great egrets, snowy egrets, cattle egrets, little blue herons, tricolor herons, wood storks. Like these birds don't discriminate. They all just nest together. And roseate spoonbills are just one of my favorite. I was birding with my parents in South Carolina for Global Big Day last week for a weekend that highlights bird migration and one of the peak migrations in North America. And my mom was just amazed that a bird like roseate spoonbill that's that pink can exist in the US. So they're just such cool birds. And so yeah, definitely take a look at what's going on here. A lot of these birds too that are colonial nesting, like spoonbills, for instance, will spend around 20 days nest building, and they'll continue actually courting each other, engaging in these pair bonding behaviors, kind of like we were seeing with the rollers, until that first egg is laid. But they'll continue building the nest until the chicks hatch. So they're not. They're in it for perfection. They want the best nest for their chick. And we do see it with a lot of these wading birds that both sexes incubate. So definitely take a look at this because there's just so much variety going on. A lot of really cool birds, a lot of really cool nesting stages. Yeah, really cool, Cam.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Holly. I'm sure we'll be speaking with you a lot over the next several weeks, several months, and beyond. So thanks for your expertise and thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike and Holly, for that update. And in other news here at Explore.org, we do have some updates for the Explore.org website as a whole, including the desktop and mobile version. So not too much is changing, but we do have some updates. And so let's hear from Candice Rush, our Director of New Media.
Version of the website. And overwhelmingly, hi, I'm Candice, the Director of New Media at Explore.org, and I am back with another website update. We have been hard at work updating the website this spring, and you will see some changes coming to Explore soon. The first question you might have is, why? Well, this version of the website was released in 2017. In that time, technology has evolved, and it is finally time for us to update our code base. When we started this process a while back, we did a survey asking what people would want from an updated version of the website, and overwhelmingly, people agreed that while there were some areas we could improve, we shouldn't change too much, and we have taken that to heart with this update. The changes we've made to the design of the site are small and focused around improving the existing user experience. What we're looking at right now is the website as it stands on production. So let's take a look at the live cam pages, see what we're working with, see what we started with. And without further ado, I can take you to our development website. So the first thing you might notice is that the color of this header has changed to match the color of our new homepage. You might also have noticed that the width of the live cam is larger than what you see on Explore now. It gives us more room to play with. The info boxes are also larger. Your profile and this menu have gotten a new look. Everything is here with a slight reorganization and things got a little rounded, but everything should be where you expect to find it. Our menus have gotten an update. There's a problem on the existing version of the website where this menu is too long and you can't click all of the elements on all the devices. So we have put things in drawers for you so that we can click everything on all devices. The events page has gotten a little bit of a new look as well. In fact, there's been a lot of these kinds of style fixes for different screens and different devices to optimize for all the diversity of what people have these days. There have also been different user experience improvements. For example, a lot of dialog boxes and other elements weren't closing properly on mobile or on desktop. So we've gone through and hoped to fix some of those little things. There have been quite a lot of performance updates so that the website should load better on all different kinds of devices. And there's been quite a lot of accessibility updates so that the website should be more accessible to people on different devices as well. The biggest update has come in the form of our mobile optimizations. The current version of the mobile website is not optimized that well. You have to scroll very far down to get any information. Buttons are close together. So in this version of the website, we have all of your live cam here, live cam previews here, like usual, but we've added all of that info in tabs up here, so they're more easily accessible directly underneath the camera instead of having to scroll down forever. So it'll default to the comment view here, but then you've got your information, you've got weather, and you can keep scrolling, and you can now access the camera's snapshot gallery from here, as well as partner information, calendar, Q&A. All of that stuff is now more easily accessible directly underneath the live cam. Another really big update has come to search. The current version of search has needed fixed for quite a while, and your feedback in the search and navigation survey we put out a while ago were really helpful here, so let's test it out. If we search bears, what do we got? We've got all of our brown bears. You can decide how many items you want per page. We now have pagination here, so it's not that infinite scroll you see on the current version of search. You can also filter. You can filter by camera partner. You can filter by group. You can filter by live status, so if it's off season or live or on highlights. You can see members here as well. This feature is not entirely finished yet. We are still working on integrating past live chats into the search function. So if you missed a chat, you can search for it on Explore instead of having to navigate YouTube. That was one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got from the search and navigation survey. We have been working very hard on these updates, and we hope that the release is seamless for everybody. We don't have a final release date as we are still going through testing, but we are far enough along that I thought it was time to show you what we've been working on. Stay tuned for more information on when you can expect to see these changes live.
Thanks again, Candace, for that update. And thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the show. We do have some more live events coming up this week. We do have coming up tomorrow at 7 a.m. the AfriCam show, if you feel like going on a virtual live safari. And of course, on Thursday at 7 a.m. we have the Wild Moment show to check out all of the best highlights from the AfriCam cameras. And be sure to keep a lookout for more events from the Audubon Seabird Institute. Those are coming up starting next month. And that is our show for today. We're going to leave you here with the Puffin cams. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And of course, I want to give a special thank you to everybody joining us today. Excuse me. Give a special thank you to our moderators, camera operators, Holly, and of course, my co-host, Mike Fitz. And join us next time for another episode of More to Explore on June 1. And until then, happy exploring.